making history. Absolutely phenomenal.
And Ace is the champion of the Intel Extreme Masters World Finals.
Storm's still not quite done. MC is going to take this fight, though. 3 seconds left.
Last 2 rounds of match has got to start it well for ESC.
And this is a massive move for Zez, but he's not content with just a Nexus kill. He wants to win.
And it's all done. And Scarlett's winning.
Unbelievable Rogue with a 4-0 victory over Classic.
And they did it again in the grand finals. It's Norby!
Give it up for your Intel Extreme Masters World Champion!
And welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to another day of IEM Katowice 2024 group stage, Group A. I'm of course your host ZvP, and with me I'm joined by my lovely plushies and the lovely people in the chat. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Dzień dobry, papi, dzień dobry. Shout out to Wormshik. I see Rowdy, Legal BBQ, Werehug, Quack, and Aistan. Aistan, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo estás? Great to be back here to wrap up with Group A. For those who weren't here, we were of course live yesterday, 24 hours ago, also covering this very group, just the first half, and here we wrap up the remainder of Group A as well. As a reminder, IEM Katowice was last week. It was last week, and I was fortunate enough to be there live at the event, and I was able to bear witness to all the matches on the main stream, but I missed out on everything happening on the B and C stream, so we are here covering that side stream content, going over the group stage. Going over all of the group stage. We wrapped up with half of Group A. We're here to finish up Group A as well. We have quite a lineup before us. Again, Group A does consist of 3 Terrans, Gumiho, Hero Marine, as well as Gumiho, Hero Marine, and Spirit. We also have Scarlett alongside Trigger and Solar as well. It is a round-robin group stage. They all play against each other. We had every TVT last time, which makes sense. It makes sense that the mainstream avoided literally every single TVT in this group was avoided by the mainstream, which again makes sense in my eyes, in my mind. So we casted all the TVTs, and now we are here for some ZV or some Zerg versus action. Up first, we have Scarlett versus Trigger, followed by Scarlett versus Hero Marine. This is going to be a rematch that I look forward to. If you remember, it was a couple of weeks ago, we went over the Home Story Cup group stage, and we casted these 2 players. They were also in the same group at Home Story Cup, and Hero Marine Big Gabe clowned all over Scarlett with mech. Hero Marine played Mass Cyclone every game against Scarlett at Home Story Cup and did bring her down 2-0. We'll see if Hero Marine plays the same style. We'll see if Scarlett is able to adjust if it is the same style and have a better response. So that's going to be an interesting matchup to follow up on. We also have Hero Marine versus Trigger. Fun fact, they were also in the same group. I don't know if you remember, but Scarlett and Trigger and Hero Marine, they were all in the same group in Home Story Cup. They're all here in the same group in IEM Katowice as well. That's either a fortunate or an unfortunate thing. Again, Big Gabe was able to have some fun against Trigger. He went for some very interesting builds and some all-ins as well. Quite a lot of all-ins against Trigger. So we'll see if, again, we have a similar style or we adjust now that we're on the main stage on IEM Katowice. And we end the night with Solar versus Spirit. Again, I remember that I believe the mainstream did cast game 2 of this series just because it was still ongoing and they had to wait for one of these players to get into the next round. So I remember getting a glimpse of Solar vs. Spirit, but we didn't get the entire series. So we're going to be jumping into that as well to see how that series did conclude and how things wrapped up over in Solar, or over in that ZvT. But to kick things off, we have Scarlett versus Trigger. Let's go. Zerg versus Protoss. A pretty classic matchup nowadays. Again, Trigger has risen the ranks over in the Americas over the past couple of years. And nowadays, actually, I was gonna say nowadays I would say that Trigger is top 3 in the Americas. Trigger alongside Scarlett and Estrella. But in the most recent season of DreamHack, the hierarchy of the Americas has kind of shifted a little bit. It has shifted over time, and nowadays, Kelazur, he's definitely up there. He's cemented himself as the best Terran in the region. You have Future, who spent some time in Korea, who's also been improving as well. You have Special, who's of course now a part of the Americas, as Latin America merged with the Americas. So yeah, it's not as clear-cut anymore. I would still say that Trigger is top 2 Protoss. I would say Trigger and Estrella, they're top 2 Protoss in the Americas region. But we'll see how Trigger does compared to Scarlett, as they are about to face off. Let's go. Let us go. As game 1 is going to be on Site Delta. Oh wait, it's loading it. And I hope everyone has had a lovely day so far as well. Here in Poland, it's still the early morning. The sun is up, it's shining. There's actually a blue sky outside. It's not just covered in gray as it typically has been throughout IEM Katowice, so it's great to see the sun. And here we go. Speaking of, that would have been a great segue to introduce Solar, but he's not here. We're casting him later. Spawning in the top left-hand corner of Site Delta, we have our Canadian Zerg player, the Red Zerg representing Shopify Rebellion. It is Scarlett. And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner, we have her opponents. We have the Canadian Protoss, the blue Protoss player, representing Team Basilisk. It is Trigger. Here we go. Again, these two have faced off many times throughout the years, especially most recent years, and they do practice quite a lot together as well. They're both, of course, good friends, and I wonder how they face off and how Scarlett does adjust here. Now, traditionally in this matchup, we speak about this all the time, but Trigger, he is more of a standard player here. I don't expect him to deviate too much. That may change against Scarlett just because they are very familiar with each other. They are practice partners, and they do compete quite often amongst each other as well. So mind games can come into play. As a result, we could see Trigger mix it up. Now would be the time. But now the gate expand. Standard opener here from our Protoss player. Nothing too out of the norm. Not yet, at least not yet. And we'll see what his takeoff choice is going to be. Based on the pylon location, we could infer a Stargate or some kind of hidden tech as well. That's always on the table. Always is available here to our players. For now, Hatch Gas Pool. Hatch Gas Pool opener out of Scarlett. Likewise, a gate expand into Cybercore from Trigger. Pylon has been thrown down, and this looks poised for a Stargate. Again, you can throw down the Stargate a little bit closer to the edge of the main base to zoom across the map with your Oracle. Scarlett, meanwhile, has been playing around with Hydras quite a bit, especially against Terran. Even against Protoss, Lingbane Hydra can be quite a useful composition and quite an effective composition, especially if your opponent is playing Stalkers. If you assume that Trigger is going to be going into Stalker production, then you can blindly take up towards Lingbane Hydra and skip out on your Roach Warren. We'll see if that's going to be the case. For the time being, there's that Stargate that we spoke about. Again, was a prime position for a Stargate opener from the likes of Trigger, and should be into Oracles. Meanwhile, back at home, Scarlett is just happily droning up, saturating her 3 bases, pulling out of gas once we have enough for speed, and the 3rd base is indeed on the way. Is on the way here for Scarlett. Adepts have arrived. Again, they're going to be poking, prodding, just getting us some scout information, at least until the 2nd Adept does arrive. And then 2 Adepts, 1-shot drones. We can threaten the mineral line. We can try to pull Trigger apart. And we'll see if Scarlett can, or we'll see, pull Scarlett apart, sorry. We'll see if Trigger can do so. We'll see if Scarlett can keep up. We don't commit to the shade yet. We also have to be very careful. If these adepts do go down, that will make Trigger's life significantly more difficult when it comes to holding on to this third base. This third would be so much more exposed. We do have to hold on. We do have to hold on to it. The adepts, they do race back home. Oracle has arrived. Lings have revealed themselves. The Oracle did spot them, and Lings, they're going straight for that third base, and they go straight for the probe as well. The pylon is cancelled, the probe goes down, and the third is successfully delayed. Meanwhile, across the map, Lings aren't here, so we can get some damage done. And we do commit to the shade. One drone gets picked off. Quick reaction, and Scarlett does pull back a little bit too soon, though, because of the Oracle. And we're getting quite a lot of damage done here. 5 drone kills so far, 6, 7. Very worth it. 7 workers go down for 2 adepts. A worthwhile trade here for Trigger. If only the third base wasn't cancelled. Lings are going across the map once again to cancel that third base. And there is an Oracle to defend. Trigger should be okay. Things are going to be forced back. Again, the Oracle in position. Not a bad start from Trigger. Again, the third base is later than we would have liked, but at least we killed a lot of workers. At least damage was done. You have the Oracle threatening the main base as well. Second Oracle moving out across the map. Adepts, they have been warped in. We have 5 Adepts on the ground, 3 Oracles in the air. And so far, Scarlett is in position. 6 Queens in total, and we do zone those Oracles away. Even getting quite a bit of hull damage. At the same time, though, that is quite a formidable force on the ground with those 5 Adepts. We have 22 Lings in production. That will be enough to deal with this. And we will force the shade to be cancelled. Adepts going to be moving up that ramp. Lings, they come in for the surround. There are some Oracles, but the Queens are here to support. And we catch out the Adepts. A big overextension from Trigger. Every single Adept goes down. That was a big investment for not much. We picked off, what, 2, 3 creep tumors? And that is it. And now we trigger a big counterattack. Scarlett getting a 6th Adept towards the end. Heads towards the third base. Shield battery is not done, but there are Oracles. And we do respect the Oracles. We'll back off. Trigger will hold onto his bases, but again, has lost map control. Has not traded well. Is stuck chasing these Lings. Behind this, Scarlett is happily saturating on 3 bases, already at 62 workers, almost 3 base saturation, 4th base is on the way, and we are indeed going for some Ling Bane action. Roach Warren has been thrown down. We speculated that maybe Scarlett would go into Ling Bane Hydra. As we can see here, Blink Stalkers and +1 are on the way. It is going to be a Blink Stalker based composition, but Scarlett is going Ling Bane Roach Ravager instead of Hydras. A much more safer approach here. It's very well rounded. It means that if Trigger was going for charge, Scarlett would also have a good composition against that as well. Ooh, as we are going to be mixing it up here. As the Oracle does manage to go past the natural base, we throw down Aspire and Mutas on the horizon. And we have seen Mutas a very viable option here in this matchup. More often than not, we do see if a Protoss player does not scout the Spire, these Mutas, they get out of control. Fun fact, we actually casted Solar versus Trigger last night, or yesterday. Yesterday we did cover Solar versus Trigger, and that's exactly what happened. Solar, he got away with Hidden Tech, he got away with Aspire, he went Mass Muta, and he pulled Trigger apart. I believe that was on Oceanborn, if I remember correctly, and it was a brutal game. It was a brutal telling there. Brutal game for Trigger, where he just wasn't able to get eyes on the tech, wasn't able to get eyes on the Spire, and Solar snowballed out of control. I believe that was in game 2, if I remember correctly. Game number 2. Meanwhile, Scarlett scouting the main base, confirming the tech of choice. We do see eyes on the Researching Twilight Council. We already know that Blink is done, so Chargeblood Archon Storm is a tech transition here for Trigger, and Scarlett sees everything. As she gets eyes on the tech transition, we do have the army moving out across the map. Scarlett getting ready for a surround. Does come in from behind. Ooh, big stasis trap though. Very nice hit on catching most of those Lings. And Trigger can take a better fight. Cleans up the Lings, cannot engage with the Roaches, will back off. But the problem is that the Spire still has not been scouted, and we are not ready for it. Now, thankfully, we do have Blink Stalkers. You know, Blink Stalkers, they're okay. They can be okay, but again, we are just not fully ready for that mentally, physically. We don't have anything to protect the natural base. The main base is vulnerable as well. There's a lot of potential for damage as we have made 10 mutas and we catch the Prism. War Prism goes down. Phoenix production has commenced and we are getting into cannons. We're now aware of what's been going on. Now, unlike Solar, Scarlett isn't going into +1 air attack. Solar, if you remember, he doubled down. He went mass muta into like a flock of 30 mutas. Here's Scarlett, only a handful, only 10, focusing on the ground army. And with that ground army, we're collapsing here on the 4th base. Bailings, they do crash into the Stalkers. They didn't quite make it into the High Templar, but 1-2 High Templar going to be going down. Not bad pickoffs. Bailings are rolling in. The Bailings, they get into the middle line, and we do not react. Probes are going down 26-27. Oh, sorry, 26 probes do fall. There it is, 27-28 in the main base. The mutas are still going ham, and Trigger is being pulled apart. Again, yes, it was the ground army that broke the 4th and broke the 3rd, but it was the mutas that allowed for that. So the mutas, they distracted Trigger, they drew away a little supply. Big stasis, oh my god, massive stasis trap here at the 3rd base. But it's too late. It's too late at this point. The 4th is already gone at this point. We do have what, over 40 probes going down. The mutas are still alive in between the bases, still killing more workers. And Trigger is struggling. Is going to be able to force Scarlett back. For Scarlett, she has remaxed. She's already remaxed. Roaches are pushing in. Zealots are going down. No more Storms. No more High Templar. Without Storms to hold off, it's just not going to be enough. Bathings, they crash into the middle line once again. They crash into the Nexus. 13 probes go down. GG gets called, and Scarlett will take game number 1. GG. A solid game there from Scarlett. And again, Trigger just wasn't able to scout the tech, wasn't able to get ready for those mutas, and they did draw away his attention. They forced defensive warpins in the main bases. That was a big chunk of Stalkers, not a part of the main fight, and Trigger was pulled apart. And GG, well played there by Scarlett, and once again, mutas, the bane of Trigger, and I don't blame him. Mutas are a very difficult thing to deal with in this matchup. You do need to be so on top of your scouting to confirm and to get eyes on what exactly your opponent is up to, and without that, things can very quickly snowball out of control. But we'll see if that's going to continue to be the case here as we get ready for game number 2. Let's go. Game 2 going to be on Alkione. CranKy GG. Indy says it's the middle of the night. Oh, I see. Indy's on that D-Gen sleep schedule. Lovely, lovely. I'm surprised. I would have assumed that Indy would be at a more, would be casting more E-friendly times, but Este Indy. Shaking my head, shaking my head. Here we go. Spawning in the top right-hand corner of Alkione, we have our red Zerg player representing Shopify Rebellion from the land of Canada, leading the series 1-0. It is Scarlett. And spawning in the bottom left-hand corner, we have her opponent. We have the blue Protoss, also from the land of Canada, representing Team Basilisk. It is Trigger. And again, to be fair, unlike what Solar did to Trigger yesterday, Scarlett didn't go mass muta by any means. It was only 10 mutas, only to harass, only to draw away the attention. Again, very well calculated there by Scarlett to commit to the ground army instead. We'll see if Trigger can have some better luck. Again, it was also a bit of a shame that Trigger did lose map control really early on. If you remember, he got surrounded, all of his adepts went down, and just like that, he was just stuck at home. The Oracles were scouting, they were doing their best, but if you remember, it was after the Oracle scouted the natural, after the Oracle had left, that's when Scarlett threw down that Spire. That's when Scarlett decided to tech up and transition and eventually catch Trigger off guard. We shall see. Again, Alkione, a much larger map compared to Side Delta. As a result, wouldn't be a bad map for something like Mutas, but now that it's been done once, I'm sure Trigger is that much more on notice. I'm sure he's that much more attentive to whether or not Scarlett were to whip out something like that. Trigger, he's that much more attentive, that much more aware. For now, Hatchcat's pool, standard opener here from Scarlett. Likewise, Trigger going for a gate expand into the Cybercore. Nothing too fancy yet. Based on the pylon placement, I imagine this is going to be a Stargate follow-up as well. Stargate opener into Oracles. Again, as you've mentioned a couple of times now, Trigger isn't really one to deviate too much. And there it is. Stargate has been thrown down. Now, Trigger doesn't deviate when it comes to his openers, but the follow-up tech, we could see something different. Last game, it was +1 and Blink. This time, it could be Blink on its own. We could maybe see Charge and Archons instead. You don't have to go Blink Stalkers every game. Here we go. So for the time being, Scarlett's just situating her bases. Adepts have arrived. Our first adept just going to be scouting, going to be checking these bases, making sure that we actually have saturation, that there's no Link Bane bust on the way, for example, which Scarlett has done in recent memory. It's something you have to be aware of and be wary of when you're up against Scarlett. As for now, the adepts are going to be backing up. Likewise, Oracle is on the way. And this time, Trigger isn't being active with his adepts. I do appreciate this. Remember, I mean, I'm a little bit torn. Last game, Trigger did kill 7 drones. Did kill 7 drones with his adept harass, with his initial adept harass. But the rush distance by ground is a lot longer here on this map. It is easier to be caught out. So Trigger is respecting Scarlett quite a bit after that first game. Adepts is secure. Third base is getting up and running. And Trigger is across the map. Just looking for a way in. Doesn't quite find one. Doesn't take any hull damage either. It's not too bad by Trigger. Likewise, Scarlett in position. Spores are on the way at the third. In the natural and not quite in the main. The main is a little bit more exposed. Meanwhile, the Oracle does go in to get 1 drone kill so far. At the same time, Oracle heads towards the natural base, getting an extra couple of workers as well. Ooh, getting 3 drones would take a lot of hull damage. A bit of an overextension there by Trigger, as he did try to get 1 extra worker. And back at home, we're transitioning. We do have our Twilight Council, our Forge on the way. This looks like +1 and Blink once again. We do catch a couple of transferring workers. 5 in total. Not too bad, especially considering that all the Oracles are still alive. Not a bad start. Not as good as last game, but not bad. The other interesting thing about this as well, as the Oracles are threatening more dives, is that this time we don't harass with adepts. Period. Not just the initial 2, but we didn't warp in an extra wave of 5. Moving out with 3. Again, only a handful. Goal base is on the way for Scarlett. And has been spotted by Trigger. He's fully aware, and the goal base should be Trigger's target with his Stalker push. Adepts a shade into the third. They get 2 drones, but not much else. Workers go down. Oracles a threat in the natural. Queens are in position. Trigger does not find any additional damage. Has only lost 2 adepts so far. And really we're just waiting for that eventual Blink Stalker push. As the Oracle is going to be threatening this goal base and catching any transferring workers. Or at least they hope to. At least they do hope to. Oracles again just camping this area. Meanwhile, across the map, Trigger taking a 4th base. Blink still on the way. You can see that we're building up that Stalker count, and now we are pushing. As Trigger moves out, Scarlett did cut workers at 3 base saturation, actually hasn't really saturated that gold, isn't being too greedy, and is producing roaches. I do love this from Scarlett. Again, respecting this army quite a bit. It's so tempting to take the gold and to just main art it immediately, but Scarlett does recognize how much danger this gold is in. Goes for the counterattack. Does run into the Stalkers. But you can see that Scarlett, she's focusing, she's prioritizing Roach Ravager saturation first, and then we can transfer over. Now we have full saturation at the gold. Scarlett does have an army, and we'll see if she can hold on to that base. So again, we just wait until we have a decent clump of Roach Ravager before taking that gold. There we go, Trigger has arrived. Link is done, +1 as well. The dance has begun. Both armies poking back and forth. Meanwhile, behind this, Colossus production has begun here for Trigger as he does transition into charge. We have +2 charge. Temple Archives not quite on the way, but we do have a second rover, so double Colossus production should be on the horizon here for Trigger. A very different follow-up. Scarlett does take a stasis to the face. And we are committing, by the way. We're moving out with our queens. Okay, here we go. A big Roche counterattack here does force the recall. And Scarlett, she's not slowing down. With the help of this gold base, Scarlett is already maxed out. Did cut workers. You can see here that she isn't even fully saturated at her third. 67 workers. That's all we have is a big 3-base all-in. In saying that, it's a 3-base all-in with one of those bases being the gold. That's why this is hitting so hard, so fast. Trigger not quite ready for this. The wall is not a wall. The wall, it's wide open. Roaches, they just flood into the main base. The main army pushing towards the third. Overcharge is popped. It's going to be shut down. And we are pushing on forward, focusing down as many Stalkers as we can. 16 probes are going down, and there is nothing in the main. Not anymore. Handful of Stalkers. Only a handful of Stalkers to defend. The Colossus is doing a lot of damage. To be fair, that Colossus is going ham. But we take down 27 workers. Scarlett will pull back with the Ravagers. Again, wants to preserve them. Reinforcements are barely coming in. The pylon does go down. And it's just a numbers game here. Trigger just does not have enough. Colossus does go down. No shield battery here to defend at the natural. Files even connecting with that Oracle. There are disruptors on the way, but they only have 1 shot each. Oh. Oh my god. Not too bad. The shots aren't bad, but it's not going to be good enough. Again, the economy is already crippled. The 4th base goes down. That's going to be a kill in the 4th. Barely any saturation here at the 3rd. The main team is in shambles. As we barely have any economy. GG gets called, and Scarlett will take this series 2-0. GG. GG, well played. Scarlett does take the series here with 2 very different styles. Alcyone was very interesting though, to see Scarlett respect Trigger quite a bit, and not, despite the fact that she went for a 3-base all-in, I love that she was very, what's the word? Very strict, very tempered, very mature in how she approached the all-in. Again, didn't rush into saturating that 4th base, just waited to have an army, respecting the Stalker count of Trigger before taking advantage of that 4th, or of the gold. And then, of course, committing to the overall all-in as well, forcing the recall and just pushing forward. Unfortunately, once again, Trigger just wasn't able to scout. What I mean by that, it's one of 2 different things here. One, Trigger wasn't able to confirm that it wasn't all-in. He saw saturation at the gold, but he didn't confirm the lack of saturation at the 3rd. Didn't confirm that Scarlett was just doubling down. On top of that, Scarlett, the stars aligned for Scarlett because Trigger happened to be going for a very tech-heavy composition. If you remember, we went +1 Blink Stalkers, not into Charged Archon, not into Immortal production. He was going double Robot Colossus production, which takes a while to really kick in. That doesn't really hit its stride until you reach 4 Colossus, until you hit critical mass. Like, critical mass Colossus is terrifying, but it takes a long time to get there. And again, it's just a very defensive, very tech-heavy style. You are vulnerable before you can really get into that Colossus production. As we saw, Scarlett hit when there was only one Colossus. The first and second Disruptor arrived towards the end, but by then it was too late. By then the damage was done. Trigger was already dead in the water. So because he was going for this tech-heavy style, again, Scarlett was able to take advantage of him. I don't know if Scarlett scouted that. I'm uncertain if, like, Scarlett's build was a reaction to that, or if she was just going for it anyway and was able to catch Trigger with his pants down. GG. GG, well played.